Tony, before we begin to discuss the history of Marr Rugby, can you tell us a little about the man behind the name C.K. Marr?
C.K. Marr was Charles Kerr Marr, who was born in 1855 in Troon, and he was educated in Troon, obviously not at Marr College, but when he left school, he started working as a clerk to the coal merchants in the harbour, because Troon was a town for exporting, with the exporting coal from Troon by boat. So he was a coal merchant, basically. And he worked his way up, and eventually his job took him to London. And he was working in the coal industry there, and then moved on to other things, and he was doing shipping till eventually he started up doing his own thing. And basically he became a self-made industrialist, earning a lot of money. During the course of his period of work down in London, he met his wife, who he married, obviously. She actually died not long after they were married. They weren't married for that long, and they never had any children, and he never remarried all his working life, and he sadly died in 1919, so he would be 74 years of age, which is actually quite old for people then. That was a good life. But after his retirement, and he spoke with his lawyers and his friends, and he was very pally with the Duke of Portland, and he decided he wanted to make do something with his money of worthwhile for Troon. So he formed a Marr Trust, and he asked them, on his death, his money would be put towards the building of a secondary school in Troon, with an emphasis on sport, and the trust had to carry out his wishes after his death. And the Marr Trust is still in existence to this day. And the school, although he died in 1919, the school wasn't actually completed building 1930. So they'd been building it during the 20s. And in 1930, they appointed a rector, a Dr. Murison, who was the first rector. And he was there for 5 years before they took in the first pupil, principally because the Scottish Education Board, Troon Town Council, Ayrshire Council, they were all at loggerheads with each other. There was great debate about who was funding what, because it was unusual for a private individual to gift a school. In fact, in Scotland, the only other likeness to that is Dollar Academy. It was exactly the same. They did the same thing, and they had dreadful troubles getting it started. However, 1935 it took over, and the school and the grounds of which the farm that was bought to build the school, the massive farm land was turned into 7 rugby pitches, a hockey pitch, or several hockey pitches, and a cricket pitch, together with a rector's house, a deputy rector's house, and heads of department, who were all housed in houses on the outskirts of the playing fields. They're still there to this day, but they're no longer owned by the school or the council. They've all been sold off, sadly, but the houses still exist. And I think that's all I can tell you about Charles Kerr Marr. He didn't have any children, sadly. It was just he himself, although he does have great-grand-nephews and great-great-grandnephews. One of whom I've met the great-grandnephew and the great-great-grandnephew of him. That's a Peter Marr and a Simon Marr. So,
Turning now to Marr Rugby Club. When was the club founded? And I believe it wasn't always known as Marr Rugby Club. Could you give us a brief history of the club?
if you think back to what I was telling you, the school started in 1935, so it was probably up to the war years before rugby players would come out of the school, so they would still want to play rugby. So they were called at the time Marr FP. So it was Marr FP. That was what the rugby. It wasn't a club. It was the Marr FPs. So in the fixture books, if you look at them back in the day, in the 40s, it would be Ardrossan playing Marr FP, or Marr FP playing Ardere, or Marr FP playing Glasgow Academy. So they were featuring there, obviously because of the schooling and the rugby training or teaching that they were getting. The quality and the standard of the rugby was way up there. So they were competing with the private schools up in Glasgow, and winning as well. So going back to what you were saying about, what was the thing that you said about...
Wasn't always known as Marr.
Oh, that's right. So sorry, I've lost the track there. Yeah, it was Marr FP, and then together, as time went on, there'd be more and more men getting together and forming what was like a club. But the club itself wasn't actually formed until 1971, which is when the clubhouse was built on the Fullerton estate, which is where Fullerton House was, which is where it is today. And the club celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2021. So that's the story of the club. It's 50 years old, or 52 years old now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you mention a few of the notables that have played for Marr Rugby Club?
Marr Rugby Club itself has produced 3 internationalists, 2 of which were brothers. Most notable of those was Peter Brown, who captained Scotland, don't quote me on it, I think 12 times, and his brother Gordon, who's sadly no longer with us. He died of cancer about 20 years ago, but Peter's still alive, not in the best of health, but he's still with us. And thirdly, a chap by the name of Billy Cuthbertson. His nickname was Cubby. I can't quote you on the number of times yet, but they were all well-capped players. So there you go. Gordon was a British Lion.
Yes. There must have been a number of inspirational PT teachers at the school. Which ones immediately spring to mind? For me, when I started at Marr College in 1964, it would be 1964. The head of physical education was a chap by the name of Papa Hardy. So he was a rugby teacher, and he was also the physical education teacher. So he would take rugby training and bring everyone on. And of course, the school again, in those years I was there, the first 15 were enjoying great success wherever they went. Moving on from that, there was a period of time, can't give you the exact years, but there was, after he'd left, there was a couple of, there was always some there, but some not maybe as good as others. But most recently, and what we're enjoying at the minute, the fruits of the teachers that were there 30 years ago was Sharkey. He was one of the men that was instrumental in bringing the kids on. Another one now, John Sharkey and Brian Gilbert. They were 2 guys that were instrumental in bringing the boys on. And our first 15 today, which are doing tremendously well, they have the boys that were the fruits of Sharkey and Gilbert at the school. So there you go. What difference did the appointment of Craig Redpath make to the club?
A massive difference. Craig has been with us now for, again, don't quote me exactly, but I think he's been with us for about 12 years. When he first came, we were down in the way down at the bottom of the divisions. The club had almost gone into bankruptcy. It wasn't running properly at all. We were floundering about, and Craig Redpath had been with Ayr Rugby Club as the coach, and he'd fallen out with them. He didn't have a coaching position anywhere. Somebody had approached him, and he realised that we needed a coach, and he could see there was an opportunity there for him and to bring the boys on. And he said, I'll leave once I get us into Division 3. I think we were probably in Division 7 then. He brought us up to Division 3 and stayed. Then he got us into Division 2, then Division 1, and then the Premiership. I mean, there was a couple of years where we stayed in the one division, but generally, throughout his time, we moved up a division per year. We went up, and then came down, then back up. And to the extent that last year in the Premiership, Marr Rugby became the club champions, yes, which is the top club in the top league of Scottish club rugby. Yes. And we were the champions. Yes. And it's all down to Craig Redpath.
Can you tell us a little about the first president of the club, David Payton?
David's still alive. He's one of the few presidents that's still alive. There's been probably 20, don't quote me on this, probably 25 presidents since the inception of the club, of which David was the first. And funnily enough, I'm holding, because I'm the current president of the club, I'm holding a dinner, a celebratory dinner on the 31st of March this year for all the living, existing past presidents of the club, of which there are only 11. And out of the 11, there's only going to be 9 at present. One can't come because of ill health, and the other one refuses to come because he left the club in under a cloud, and I can't mention the name. But David himself, his father was the provost of Troon. David only stays around the corner from here. I'm not sure what David will be now. He's in his 80s anyway. He was an accountant to trade. He was also, and I think he maybe still is, he's the chair of the Marr Trust, which is a body of people that manage the money that Marr gifted to the trust for the further educational projects for anyone in Troon that went to Marr. If they approach the trust and give them a reason and a story why they want funding, the trust looks at it and they'll give it. There's an amazing number of people that don't know about that, and it is there available, and there's a lot of money in the trust. So, yeah, David's a good friend. He's not in such good health at the minute, but he's still about.